All rise if you are able for the President of the United States of cars. According to the American University's Kogod School of Business's most recent Made in America Auto Index report, the Lincoln Corsair is the most made in America car. The study found that the Corsair had the biggest positive impact on the American economy of any vehicle built in the USA. Corsair prices start around 40 grand, but this is the Corsair Grand Touring plug-in hybrid that lists for closer to 55 grand and 63 when it's loaded up like this one. It comes standard with all-wheel drive and a naturally aspirated 2.5-liter four-cylinder based hybrid powertrain rated at a maximum of 266 horsepower. It also has a 14.4 kilowatt-hour battery pack that's good for 28 miles of all-electric driving before that motor even has to kick in. After that, it's rated to get 33 miles per gallon combined, although I've been getting closer to 36, 37. The Corsair only comes with 240 volt charging capability, so you can't use it at a DC fast public charging station, but that's kind of the point of a plug-in hybrid, not having to stop to charge along the way. And like many plug-in hybrids, it has the drive mode, so you can choose to use the battery first, run it as a hybrid, or save the battery for when you think you might need it, like quietly gliding through the woods or into your driveway at night. As far as styling is concerned, the Corsair was recently redesigned to better match the rest of Lincoln's lineup, the hope being you buy this entry-level vehicle and then step up till you get to a six-figure Navigator. That means it's got nice leather, open-pore wood, and just enough rubbery plastic surfaces to remind you that you haven't made it there quite yet. Lincoln didn't skimp on the comfort, however, especially when it comes to the seats, which adjust in pretty much every way you can imagine, including the side bolsters and the leg bolsters, and a bunch of zones in the seat bottom and back. It also has a split seat bottom that allows you to adjust both legs independently, which I'm not sure anyone was ever actually asking for and somehow still seems a little creepy. But it all seems to work. I drove this over 8 hours the other day and felt great at the end of it. And I didn't even use the massage function the seats also have. The Corsair is one of the smaller models in its class, however, so as far as my 6'1" scooch test is concerned, where I see if I can fit behind myself comfortably, it does come up a little bit short. So hopefully the passenger back here is short too. The Corsair comes standard with a digital instrument cluster and a 13.2-inch touchscreen infotainment system display, but does have a few physical controls underneath it. There are some unusual choices, however. There's only a volume knob, and the transmission is controlled with these piano-style keys, where you have to go to the screen to change the climate control. Which leads us to the Caffeina cup and bottle holder count, brought to you by Caffeina Caffeinated Water. It's spring water with a kick. Caffeina! So the Corsair has a pretty straightforward setup for a compact SUV. You've got 2 cup holders up front, 2 in the rear, but only if you put down the armrest. And there's a couple of bottle slots in the doors. Come to think of it, Caffeina is kind of like a plug-in hybrid. It's water with a little extra juice. Caffeina! Buy it on Amazon using the link below. The Corsair is very quiet, befitting a luxury car, but it does make some noises. At low speeds, there's this electronic hum that's a pedestrian alert that's maybe a little too loud in the cabin, but then as you speed up, it turns into more of a rumble, which is, of course, a fake motor noise. The good news is the actual powertrain isn't harsh and doesn't make much noise at all. One thing to keep in mind is that when you're in all-electric mode, you don't get all 266 horsepower, but the motor is very torquey and has no problem getting this up to speed. You'll want to be in hybrid mode for the full effect, and even though it's not a ton of power, it's well suited to this vehicle, which doesn't really aim to be a sports car, although it does kind of handle and ride like one. This has an electronically controlled adaptive suspension, and even on a windy road with a garbage surface like this, it cushions you while it's carving the curves with plenty of poise. I'm really surprised at how much it impresses on this road, which is basically the Nürburgring. As far as the competition is concerned, there are roughly 5 million compact luxury SUVs these days, many of which can be had with plug-in hybrid powertrains. But I think the closest one to this is probably the Lexus NH450H Plus. They cost about the same and are similar in size, but the Lexus has a larger battery pack that's good for 37 miles of all-electric driving, and it's 36 miles per gallon after that. The Lexus is also imported from Japan, so it doesn't qualify for any of the current electric vehicle purchase tax credits, while the Corsair qualifies for $3,750. Go USA, baby! The top-of-the-line Corsair Grand Touring also has the Lincoln Active Glide hands-free highway driving system, which could steer the vehicle in lane, controlling its speed, change lanes when you hit the turn signal, and will even move over a little bit in your lane if there's a big truck coming by, just like one of those people who moves over in their lanes when a big truck comes by. It uses this facial scanner on top of the steering wheel with these blinking infrared lights that show up on camera but you can't actually see, to make sure you've got your eyes on the road. And it's not just looking at your face, it's looking at your eyeballs. If you look down or away from the road, it'll tell you to start looking at the road again. And if you don't, it'll deactivate. And it's also map-based, knows exactly what roads it can work on, and will deactivate when it gets to one that it can. It's exactly the same as Ford's Blue Cruise. In fact, for 2024, Lincoln is changing the name to Blue Cruise. It says to create a more cohesive brand, but definitely not because Active Glide sounds like a product from an entirely different category, where a smooth ride is also important. Ultimately, this is the kind of car that when you first get in and look around, you're like, that's pretty nice. And then you take it for a ride and you're like, it's all right. But then you take it for a longer ride and you're like, oh, it's all right.